On this episode of the John 1911 podcast, Surefire Turbo Lights, Chinese ISR balloon, Jewish space lasers, and man crushed by vault door.
Okay, good evening, everybody. This is Danny and Marky, and this is episode 288 of the John 1911 podcast. We are back together after a little bit of a hiatus. We're still trying to go through some audio issues, but how have you been, Danny?
Freezing my ass off. It went down to 3 degrees last night.
You know, I noticed it did get a little cold here. It's been getting not as cold as you. Like it's getting down to about 20 at night here. And so, you know, like my poor tractor's still sitting outside, so I worry about it. But, you know,
it's supposed to be in the high 40s by you next week, so it'll thaw.
Yeah, I mean, we had a little bit of snow. I have to admit, we had a little bit of snow, but I mean, you know, the cold honestly is going to help me. It's going to help dry the ground out a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so we can do some more shooting. Because we're a little wet in some of the areas on the range, so it makes it hard for me to do things out there. So, but before we get into this, I want to bring up something that you and I talked about in text message, and I want to make sure that we don't miss a great financial opportunity. I saw an article on the internet that said an iPhone 1 was worth or sold for $50,000.
Yeah, it's brand new in the package, unopened.
So let me remind the listener of the story of me bringing Danny onto the podcast. So, you know, we're talking and I'm like, yeah, you know, he's like, what do I need to have? How does it work? And whatever. I'm like, would you have an iPhone or, you know, a smartphone? He's like, I have an iPhone. And I'm like, okay. And we're talking and I go, what model iPhone do you have? And he goes, I have the iPhone. I'm like, yeah, but what number? He goes, I guess it's a number 1 because I have the iPhone. And we went back and forth, and long story short, Danny literally had the original iPhone. He was still using it.
Yes,
when we started this. And, you know, do you still have it?
You know, since you sent me that article, I believe it's sitting at one of my kids. I have to go look. But yeah, and also remember, it was in fine operating shape when I went to my new iPhone.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah, it worked well. And believe it or not, for some reason, the battery in that thing holds twice the charge of any of these new iPhones.
That's interesting. I wonder, well, it can't update the operating systems. Like, I don't know, but like the thing is, things that people didn't think would be valuable. This is kind of like with collector items, you know, like Corvettes, like all these people or Camaros, they buy these Corvettes, and Corvettes are great cars. But you get to the point where every Corvette or every Camaro is, well, this one's a special one because this one is white with the blue stripes,
Right.
as opposed to with blue with the white stripes. And it becomes, you know, it's like none of them are really collectible. There's a ton of these. But even though your iPhone, I expect at some point historically, your iPhone may not be worth $50,000. There's probably some nerd out there that has the equivalent of the John 1911 reference collection for, I don't know, phones or IT technology, and they would love to have that iPhone.
Yeah, possibly.
Especially if it works.
And
like
remember,
I've seen. Oh, go
remember,
ahead.
it's the 1-inch wide charging bottom, the old style. Remember those?
Oh, I do. I forgot about that.
And I still have those, along with a car charger with a wide end. I had everything set for it. I'm telling you what, even though that thing was 8 or 9 years old when I got this new one, I was high tech. I had a car charger.
You had a car charger.
You know.
But, you know, just, you know, like I've seen, like when I was a kid, when I'm a little younger than you, when I was a kid, the computers, like I remember when, like I had a friend, his father was an engineer, and they were big in building their own computers. And I remember like there were TRS-80 Radio Shack computers in the schools. at this one school. And then I remember when the Apple came out, and I remember the Apple II. I remember the Apple IIc. I'm a Commodore 64. I had an Atari 800.
I still have my
And
Commodore 64.
well, the thing is, a lot of this stuff has become more and more valuable. Like I was an Atari guy, so I had an Atari 800, and then there was a lower grade Atari 400. I had the big 800 with 48K in it, and then you could expand up to, they had the new, it was with the Motorola 60, I think it was the 68,000 processors. They were white, and they were the Atari 10. I think it was the 1040 or 1050 computers, but we had like, I had an Atari computer, an 800, and you'd flip a lever, and a thing would open. You could put cartridges in it, kind of like the 2600, the Atari, the video game system. It did accept a cartridge, but you could crack open the back, and I don't know how I found this, but I found a guy maybe it was in Florida, and this Atari computer had a 48 kilobytes, 48K of memory. That's all it had. And my Rolex watch has more memory than that, and it's not even electronic. And so this guy, you could buy this motherboard, or you buy this memory card. And what he did is, like, you have like a memory card, or you have like like a circuit board, right? And you have
Right.
chips soldered onto a circuit board. This dude had chips soldered on a circuit board, and then he had chips soldered on top of the chips. And he did it on both sides. And I was able to get a megabyte of memory that, I went from 48K to, it was a megabyte. And, it was like this custom whatever thing. You had to rip all the stuff out and put it all in. And all this stuff is, I don't think it's $50,000 valuable, but you don't think about that stuff being collectible, and that's what makes it collectible, because they got trashed and moved on and thrown away, like most of those iPhones.
Right.
And I know, like, I had seen in the past. I'm really showing my computer science backgrounds when I was younger in this podcast. But like, there would be, like, the Smithsonian was scooping up a lot of these things. Like, you were seeing references to, they were looking for complete Commodore 64s, or I remember there was a game. What the hell was the game? One of my neighbors had, and it was like considered the badass game, like video game system at the time. Was it ColecoVision? Does that sound familiar?
Uh, my to this day, my computer knowledge or any type game or anything is the game Pong. After that, I know nothing.
Pong.
That is my computer knowledge.
Well, kind of on the same vein, um, like, okay, I feel real bad about this, because I had Surefire makes flashlights for the firearms industry and weapons, and they were originally called, I think, laser products. But I had a Surefire flashlight, and I had it, like, I even had it during John 1911 times, and I was traveling and left it in a hotel room, and that's when I lost it, probably within the past 5 or 6 years. But this flashlight, I remember there had been, I tell the story. There had been there had been a threat on my life, and so I'd gotten a call, and it was like, you got to start wearing body armor. I'm like, God damn, and I couldn't really get any body armor to fit me. So I found a company, and this company, they had a store outside of Fort Knox called, I don't even know if the store's still there. It's called Calvary something. Some listener will know what I'm talking about. It was Calvary. It had Cav. It was a Cav, like it was like, not Cavalry Arms, but some kind of store that had a name Cavalry. Cavalry. So I was able to. I reached out to them, and I spoke to a rep, and I said, I need some body armor, and I had to get my chest size to get it to fit my chest. And they were like, "Oh, let's look and see." They're like, "We have one, but it's overseas at a show." And so what they did, this is my hand to God, this is a true story. She said, we know that there's a Mac flight coming in from Europe, and the show was in Europe. They somehow got this body armor included onto a military airlift command flight, and somehow it ended up they got it down there to Fort Knox, and someone brought it into the store. And then I drove down to Fort Knox. It was late, and like I was, it's hours away, and I drove there. Like I got there at, I don't know, it was way after closing. Like I was like, "Hey, I'm coming. You're going to be there, right? You're going to be there." Like, "Yeah, we're staying open for you." And so I get to this big store, and it's at night. There's an older woman. I mean, she's probably like my age now. Older woman working there, and she's got the body armor and everything, and this big giant, basically tactical supply store. And I was like, can I just spend a few minutes looking around? She was like, "Oh, sure, honey, go ahead, buy it. You can get anything you want." And I bought that Surefire flashlight that night on a whim because I was like, "Man, I need this." And those flashlights have become kind of collectible.
Really?
And I carried that my whole career. And then
Wow.
it was like the old Surefire flashlights used to operate in like a syringe. Like they had a push button tail cap, and it had
Right.
this rubber like grommet around it, these big rubber washers, and you literally activated it like you were like squeezing a giant syringe. And then I would, hold my 45 in my right hand, and I would use, try to, do a two-handed, and did that. And I at the time, this flashlight was incandescent. There was no LED, and this thing was 60 lumens, 60 whole lumens. And I've told you all of that to tell you this. So Surefire has a new line of weapon lights coming out, and they're at the they're 600. I think they do 1,000 lumens, but I know they do 600 lumens. But now they're increasing the candela, and the difference between lumens is like the amount of power in a flood, and then candela is like the directed beam. And you can when these new they're called turbo lights, and when these turbo lights finally hit the market, you should be able to light up an individual man-sized target fairly easily, about 150, 200 yards in the dark.
That's amazing.
Take a shot, and
That's
so.
amazing.
And the thing is, why I'm thinking about all this is I'm trying to configure that Gemtech and that suppressed AR-15 rifle. And so, I've got the heat wrap on it. What else do I have on it now? I've got a sling on it, but I haven't shown that yet on the website. But I'm looking around for a flashlight. And I'm like, well, I really don't want to rip off the scout light that's on the SIG rifle. So I'm like, hey, I guess I got to buy another scout light, or maybe let's see what else is out there, bod light, or all these different things. But I'm kind of a Surefire guy. But I realize now that I've learned more about flashlights the past couple of days. Like, I guess Mod Light and Surefire use the same tail cap connectors, so you can do the same switches, and maybe they even might have interchangeable heads or different lights. I didn't even know you could get interchangeable heads. But long story really short is I just realized that at SHOT Show this year, Surefire is coming out with these giant lights that you can I should be able to light something up at 200 yards. And the thing is, with that suppressed rifle, I want to shoot that at the range at night, out to 200 yards. Like, yeah, that's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I'm thinking back to over 25 years ago. Let me see. It could be longer than that. Let's see. What is it? 2023?
Yeah. Yesterday it was. I think today is too.
Yeah. Uh, let's see here.
Excuse me.
Yeah. I mean, it's 20 years ago. It's every bit of 20 years ago. No, it's got to be longer than that. Uh, yeah. No, it's 30 years ago.
And it's still
Hold on.
working.
Well, the one I lost, it was working. I mean, I would drop it like you have to buy a new light bulb fixture for it. But I realized I missed that light, and I really wish I'd really kind of kicked myself for losing it. But I have the original Surefire. It's in the armory, the original Surefire. You know the X300 lights that you could bolt to pistols?
Yes,
You've
yes,
seen
I
my,
do.
yeah.
Yes, I do.
Well, I've got like we bought a newer one for the, for my 1911. I have a Surefire X200 from, God, if that was 30 years ago, this has got to be 20, 25 years ago. I bought this 20 years ago, this X200, and it is an LED light, but it's 60 lumens. And, like it just looks like, I mean, compared to the stuff you got now, it's a joke. But, I mean, there may come a day when somebody's like, we would love to have that X200 Surefire in our reference collection of old lights. You just never know. You better check and see if that iPhone's worth something.
Oh, I will. I'll look up serial numbers and all the other thing, and because I had it since it first came out. I still have the original box for it.
You have the box?
Yes,
Dude, you need to get on eBay. You know what? When we get off pod, I'm going to get on eBay and I'm going to look and see. Because here's the thing. I mean, I would not be surprised if you got the box and all the accessories.
I do.
I bet you that's worth. I'll bet you that's worth $300 to somebody.
Yeah, me. I don't know. Yeah, well, look it up. I have the box. I have the original charging cable that came with it. I have everything.
That's amazing. I mean, I don't. The box is what separates the wheat from the chaff, I guess, as they say.
Yep. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But well, enough about our phones and lights. I'm busy watching the eclipse of the Chinese balloon.
The Chinese balloon.
I was watching the news. I was doing my job, and 4 or 5 even mainstream media reporters all asked Biden, "What are you going to do about the balloon?" He did not answer one time. Nothing. So now the Republicans in Congress are after him. Hey, shoot the thing down. Here's my question to you. If the U.S. sent a balloon over China, what would have happened to it?
That's not the real question, though.
Well, why not? Tit for tat.
Well, let me tell you a story. We used to do that. So you know what I didn't study for this quiz because we didn't. I knew this was going to come up. But do you know what the SR-71 is, right?
Yes, I do.
Like
The
most people do.
Blackbird.
It's the Blackbird airplane, right?
Yes.
So before the SR-71, or maybe it was like a parallel project. I don't know if it's the Air Force or the CIA. There was a drone that the Americans. I don't remember who was operating this thing. And it looks like an SR-71, but it's about a third of the size. And it's got like maybe one engine and an intake, and it's black. And what we used to do is we used to, fly up to the coast of China, and then we would airdrop these things, and they would run like, ignite them, and they'd have cameras, and they'd boogie across all of China, and then they'd recover them somewhere. I don't know if they'd recover them in like Pakistan or something, I think is where they were trying to get them. And one of them, I think, definitely crashed. And it's been a decade since I've seen this. Somewhere in China is a little museum, and it shows the wreckage of the American spy drone that they claim they shot it down, but they didn't shoot it down. It crashed. And I don't know if this was in the 70s, possibly, or in the 60s. Maybe it's in the 70s. But, we've done this kind of thing. So,
Well, here's the thing. We now have the technology to shoot it down. Why aren't we? Why is Biden being tight-lipped? Why is he letting this happen over our country? Because he's a fucking pussy. I'll say it.
Okay. Okay,
You
yeah.
can
I mean,
edit that out if you want.
no, I'm not going to add anything. Look. I'm not blurring out magazines and suppressors on YouTube because it's just too difficult. Because I'm not living like that. I'm definitely not blurring out, curse words on a podcast. Um, okay, number one, there was a report, and you don't know what's true, but there was a report that Biden apparently told the military he wanted to shoot it down, and they advised him not to shoot it down. So we don't. And that being said, we don't know what we don't know. Um, the military, they know now. I think people are starting to catch up. As soon as I heard about this balloon late last night, and the assumptions about the balloon and the arguments for the balloon, like, well, it's no different than what the spy satellites can see. I guess logically you can make that point. But number one, we don't know how good the Chinese spy satellites are, if they are any good at all. But number two, um, I was looking at this thing and I was trying to think about it logically, and I'm not entirely certain that what people think it is what it is. Here's why. So the American military, if we are going to fight a war against people, unless they're going to invade our country, we are an expeditionary military. Like you hear phrases all the time like blue water navy and forward deployed, and we have military airlift command. They've changed whatever they call that now. It's not called that anymore. Um, and like the fleets around the world and all this. Well, one of the problems an adversary has when dealing with the United States, one of the dilemmas is, so like that DF-21 that carrier killer missiles that they can shoot from China. That they need targeting data. You can't fire a missile unless you know you got to have something to aim at.
Where's it going to
And
go? Right.
yeah, you got to be able to aim it. And so, you know, an electronic surveillance balloon, because we've experimented with these too. But I'll get on that in a minute. An electronic surveillance balloon has a high it's so high up its line of sight is very far, and it doesn't need a lot of energy. It's not burning gas to stay up there, and so in theory you could launch, I don't know, 5 or 6 of these across the Pacific Ocean, and you could cover even by virtue of detecting an American carrier battle group or not detecting it. If you don't see it, at least you know where it's not. And if you don't know where it's not, then you have an idea where it is. And so I I suspect there's more going on here. Now, with that being said, you know, I've looked at some of the graphics that the news has been putting out showing the flight of the balloon,
Right.
and you know, I have problems with this because I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking at here. And if like John 1911 publishes a graphic showing the flight, like we draw something and it shows where the balloon started and then where it ended up, we don't really know the path it took. We would be guessing. And here's an example. I've seen multiple infographics showing this balloon originating in China, and then some of them show it crossing the Kamchatka Peninsula, which is Russia, Vladivostok, right? The big Russian naval base in Japan. And then I see other ones where it's way farther south, and then it went up into, possibly went up into Canada, and now it's going south. And so when I heard about this last night, this balloon was located. When I heard about it, the photographs of it, it was flying over Billings, Montana, and it was like, okay. And up in Montana, you've got ICBM fields up there, North Dakota. I think in North Dakota, Montana, they closed some of them. Whereas, and then it's like, okay, well, prevailing winds. I'm not an expert on prevailing winds, and so it's like, well, now apparently it's over Missouri today, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm trying to think about the weather. And I'm trying to think about how, like we talk about this all the time. Hey, Danny, what's the weather in Chicago? Well, this is what it is today. In about 2 days, you're going to see this, Marky. And I'm trying to figure out if the wind blows from Billings, Montana, down to Missouri, where Whiteman Air Force Base is, where the B-2 bombers are at, and where the new whatever thing is. And so Is it an ISR platform for spying? Is it an ISR platform for targeting? Is it an ISR platform for both? There seems to be. I know there's been one of these off the coast of Hawaii. There might be one now. The Canadians supposedly said some comment about we don't want to have a second incident. It's like, well, wait a minute. What was the first incident?
What was the first?
Yeah, and so then now you're getting into the theory of it too, and you're like, all right, I know Anthony Blinken was supposed to go to China and have a meeting with them. I guess they canceled that today. And it's like, well, okay, they knew about this thing they knew about this thing a few days ago, or they were aware of it. It was coming. And so at what point it was leaked? Was it leaked, or was it intentionally leaked? Did we leak the information so we could go over to China and basically browbeat them and be like, I don't want to hear shit from you motherfuckers, about, what we're doing, because look what you're fucking doing. And, play that game. But then Blinken, apparently they canceled the meeting today. And then, then I'm thinking about them talking to the Biden talking to the military, be like, shoot the fucking thing down. And supposedly they're like, no, don't shoot it down. If that is true, I don't know if that's true. We live in a world when they lie about goddamn laptops and fucking Steele dossiers. So I don't know what's true and what's not true.
Well,
and I certainly can't believe, but let me give the benefit of the doubt here. It's like, okay, this thing, what if it's a mistake? What if the Chinese are like, this is one of our carrier killer targeting balloons that we were running an exercise with, and we were supposed to recover it, or we were able to steer it, and now it's flying over frickin' America, and or if it is spying, maybe it's a way for us before we shoot it down to sniff it and get signals intelligence out of it. The reality is, if it's not a targeting balloon, and if it's an ISR, which is still kind of targeting, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. If it is a spy balloon, it's probably not as much a like a satellite. It's more of like signals intelligence, electronic intelligence, radio traffic, coded traffic, types of things it can pick up. You see what I'm saying? Danny, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening to everything. Can we pick it up? I was totally listening to everything you said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I saw something weird on my screen. I'm like, holy shit! I don't trust the computer. So
no, I'm here. But I was actually, before we got on pod, the Air Force came on and said at this point they're worried about shooting it down because they're not sure where the trajectory of the landing would be, and they don't want it over a populous area.
Well, that's okay. Cool story, bro. Cool
well,
fucking
I'm
story.
Here. Danny, are you there?
Yeah. I mean, it's
listen.
it's like, okay, look. I mean, suck my dick. Like, okay, do you like, okay, like, oh, motherfucker, like this pisses me off because it's like, do you know how many people live in Montana?
No, a couple of
what
cows
is it?
and a moose.
600? Is it 600,000? Maybe it's 1 million. Like the population of Ohio, I think, is 11 million. That's where I live.
I think it's safe to say up there in the Northwest, it's pretty safe, and the Air Force would have a really good idea of with the prevailing winds which way it would go down. I really think they would.
Yeah, I
But
mean, it would. I mean, I don't know what the CEP is of a popped balloon from 90,000 feet, but I mean, it's not more than a couple miles. It's like, give me a break, like with
right.
that one. Like the
Well,
more
that's the
the farther
narrative
it's
they're that's the
the
narrative they're
far
pushing.
look, that's a bullshit fucking answer because the
Well,
farther east it flies, the worse it gets.
right.
Like
Well,
like
hey, I'm
with like
not creating the narrative. I am doing my CPC, chief political
I
correspondent
know.
work, and I'm just reporting on what what's that saying? You're shooting the messenger for the message.
No, it's just like if I was sitting in the press room at the Pentagon and Kirby's up there, Admiral Kirby, and he's up there saying this jive ass bullshit. You'd hear me in the back of the room going, "Oh, come on, what the
And
fuck?"
well, I said
Like just
that. I said that, and it was only a 1-star general that was being the spokesman. It
well, that's
wasn't.
their job. That's their job. It's like, hey,
Oh,
guess
okay.
what? Welcome to flag country. Now go out there and
And
bend
lie.
over, bitch. Yeah,
Well,
it's like
and Biden is not answering any questions, even from CNN or MSNBC. Asked him why doesn't he shoot it down? Not an answer.
well,
Nothing. He stormed out
okay.
of the room.
Well, here's the thing. It's like, again, and I'm going to use this to pivot to another thing. Okay, whoever's president, you can make the argument, shoot it down. Maybe there's a good reason to not shoot it down, or
Yeah,
maybe there's
because
a
they
good
don't want it
reason.
to land on the people,
Maybe
according
no,
to the
no,
Air
no.
Force.
The real reason. Maybe it's like no. If we let's give it some time because we're still gathering intelligence out of it. We're trying to see what it's transmitting or what it's doing. Or it could be a situation like Mr. President. We already have one of these. We
Oh,
already
that's it.
have one from the one we shot down a month ago.
Yeah,
Like,
it's sitting in Roswell.
yeah, I mean, but the thing is, this is quickly turning into, hey, let's give a partisan hot take. Shoot the fucking thing down, Joe. Fucking China Joe's not shooting it down. And the thing is, it's like, the Democrats got to be like, well, the military, they say whatever. And the Republicans are like, China's in bed with the fucking Chinese. And here's the thing, it looks like there were balloons during the Trump administration. And if Trump was president now, and they were like, "Hey, Mr. President, we're not going to shoot it. We'd rather not shoot it down yet because we're still collecting signals intelligence from it. When we're done, maybe we'll collect it. Or for whatever reason they're giving to not shoot it down or to not shoot it down yet, the exact thing would be the exact opposite. Marjorie Taylor Greene would be out there talking about like, well, we got to be smart and whatever, and the Democrats would be like, fucking in bed with the fucking Chinese, fucking crazy Donnie isn't doing his job, and it's
Right.
like all of this is bullshit. Like all this is bullshit. I mean, and I'm going to use this as a segue. So,
Go ahead.
who's the it just pains me. Who's the drag queen Republican again? What's his name?
George.
Santos?
Yes.
That's okay. All right. So, you know, he so
Those are just allegation, and it hasn't been proven yet.
no, no. He's come out. No. He has come out
I'm
and
being
said
facetious. I'm being
no. He has
facetious.
come out and said that is him. And apparently, Hunter Biden's come out and said that's his laptop too. By
Yes,
the
he
way.
did. I that was
Mm-hmm.
not. I was going to get into
Mm-hmm.
that also. So I why
But hold on, no,
go ahead.
I'm going back to Santos for a minute. So I think of Santos, and I think legit like crazy, like this guy's a grifter. Like he's just going through life doing all this crazy shit,
Albeit
and
a
all this
smart
whatever
one.
stuff. And then you've got like Ilhan Omar. She's
Oh,
crazy.
she got the boot.
Yeah, she got the boot. But it's like the Republicans have air cover because we ran off Steve King.
Yes.
We ran off Steve King for
Right.
his anti-Semitic shit. And it's like, we just did that. We were trying to get rid of him for years, and it's like, so we're pretty consistent. And then you start thinking about, you've got, they don't know, I guess the people that keep score, I guess they say, what's Bobert's first name?
Lorena, no, Lorna, or
Uh,
whatever it is,
Lauren
Lorena,
Lauren Boebert. She's the
something
girl
like
that
that.
had wearing the guns that worked as a waitress,
Right.
and I think she's kind of cute girl. And I guess the left, she's officially considered crazy, but I don't know if she's crazy or not. But then there's Marjorie Taylor Greene,
My
and
girlfriend.
I really don't. Your girlfriend?
Oh yeah.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, the blonde girl.
She's
You wait a
I'm
minute. Wait. Do you think she's hot? Do,
no.
do
I
you
meant
like
that
CrossFit chicks?
I like her political standing.
Okay, so all right, and I thought this was funny because, and I'm going somewhere with this. So they kicked off what's her name? Some people did something, girl from Intelligence Committee,
Omar.
or no, foreign affairs.
Right.
Yeah, not intelligence. Oh my God, she can never be on intelligence, especially on the select committee. Oh my God.
Right.
So kicked her off foreign affairs because she's a bigot, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, apparently it has come out. Like, I mean, I'm sure I'm the last person to know this, but they're digging up like stuff that Marjorie Taylor Greene has said in the past before she was a member of Congress. And
Right.
the argument they're trying to say is, well, Marjorie Taylor Greene still gets to be here, and she said some crazy shit on the internet. And I think for the people at home, number one, keep in mind, you say crazy shit on the internet, it could affect you. And number two, it's like, well, they're saying that doesn't apply because Congresswoman Greene said this before she was a congresswoman, and you said it in the House, or you said it
Right.
while you were a congressman in Omar. You know what Marjorie Taylor Greene said that was anti-Semitic? Do you
I
know?
no. I maybe about moving the capital to Jerusalem. I don't know.
No. I literally, because I don't pay much attention to her because I don't think she does proper pull-ups. I'm like, that's not a pull-up. Um, there were wildfires in California some year. Like, there's wildfires in California every year, right? There's wildfires in California some years ago. And so the bad ones, and again, you say they were the bad, like California has bad wildfires, like seems like every 3 years. And so she came out and she said it was a conspiracy, this area that all burned up because of these wildfires. And she said that the wildfires were started by Jewish space lasers to clear the path for the high-speed rail system they wanted to put out there.
I believe that. Yeah.
Jewish space lasers. And I'm like,
well, well, yeah, that might be a
I'm
little far fetched,
I
but
am so
they did need to clear the land somehow for the rail to nowhere.
I am so disappointed when I hear about Jewish space lasers on multiple levels.
Well, yeah, I have no information on them. If you want me to deep dive into them, I
No,
will.
no, no, because hold on. Number one, we have a staff member who's Jewish, Reuven Reuven, and I need to, as soon as we get off the podcast, I'm going to have to call Reuven and be like, yo, Reuven, you holding out on us.
Yeah, send me
Like,
the
apparently
intel.
you haven't cut me in on the Jewish space lasers. Like, I've got all these guns in the armory, and we don't have any Jewish space lasers around here, brother. Are you part of the team or not? Because I want, listen to me, Oy vey, Marky wants in on the Jewish space lasers. I'm down with the program. I want in. And then the
well,
second thing is, if Marjorie Taylor Greene believes in Jewish space lasers,
yeah.
why aren't the Jewish space lasers shooting down the Chinese fucking balloon?
Yeah, that's because they are our ally. You know, that story, the space lasers and the Chinese balloon and all the other stuff is really good. But I might be equal to or be able to top you or top that one with what Bolbert said yesterday.
Yeah.
Did you hear what she said?
No.
Okay. She gave the number of how many millions of guns there are. And she also gave the number that the Democrats are crying about, that 43 or 44% of all guns in the world are owned by Americans. And then her next sentence was, and we need to get that number up.
You need to bump up those numbers, those rookie numbers.
Yeah, that's what she said.
She's
What's this?
literally talking in memes now. She's meme talking. We got to bump those numbers up. Those are
That's
rookie
what she
numbers.
said.
Oh,
And then, did you see AOC's meltdown about her stablemate Omar getting booted off the committee?
I heard about it, but I don't
It's like,
care.
come on, go back to bartending.
I mean,
You
I
know,
mean, it's like, hey, Lauren Boebert was a bartender or waitress. Like, hey, I'm okay with being a bartender. You fine? Ian McCollum was the Forgotten Weapons guy. He's a bartender. Like, I'm not. I have nothing against bartenders.
nor
Um,
do I. But I mean, I think her intelligence level stretches to not mixing up which vodka and club soda or something. I don't
I
know.
think. Uh, AOC is. I don't think she's dumb at all. I think she's pretty smart, and I think she's real media savvy. But
Excuse me.
the problem is, she everyone's kind of caught on to her game. She's not ahead of the pack. Like when she went down to the border and she's went to the detention center and she's hanging on the fence in the white
Right.
outfit crying, and there's like, you look and there's like, it's a photo op like with Greta Thunberg and the cops carrying her away, then they put her down, they're all laughing. And and so she gets up there and has a meltdown, and she's doing it because there's cameras. And
Right.
it's one of those arguments that you can make for why you shouldn't have cameras in a lot of these places, because people, instead of trying to be legislators, they're just playing to the camera.
That's
And I had a
exactly.
complaint about that Gates guy in Florida, the Republican, that was acting like a fool, when they were trying to get McCarthy elected speaker, because he was just showing off for the gram down there.
No,
Like
not
he
really. I disagree with that. I think
I mean,
that he was playing his political cards very smartly, and he
No,
ended up
I don't
getting the
know.
committee assignments that he
I don't know
wanted.
how smart that is, because if you go behind closed doors and you're negotiating, and then you say yes, we have a deal, and then you walk out there in front of the cameras, and McCarthy's whipping them up, and he's like, "Okay, let's get the vote across the finish line," and all of a sudden Gates is like, "No deal," and that's why the other guy wanted to punch his lights out.
I seen
And it's
that,
like, that is scummy.
but then
That is
again,
scummy.
but
Dom
then
don't even want to
again,
hear. I don't even want to fucking hear that shit about Gates. Look, he's a
well,
Republican, and I gotta take him because he's on my side. But I gotta tell you, my alarm bells about him are like freaking full blast.
but
Like, you better be
but
careful hooking up
no,
to that
no.
train.
I'll tell you why I like his political gamemanship is because we all know McCarthy is an entrenched Washingtonite. We know that. Okay, Gates basically told him, "Hey, look, me and my coalition, unless we get this, this, and this."
Wait a
we,
minute. Wait a minute. It wasn't Gates' coalition. Like, about Gates is like the general on the battlefield.
Well, they're okay. The band of six, whatever you want to call it. I call it a
Mm-hmm.
coalition. I'm trying to be politically correct for our
I don't like.
listeners.
I don't. I have an irrational dislike for him, and I don't know
Well, yeah.
why.
Well,
I
I
can't
know
prove
you.
it.
I know you just don't like them,
I
but
think I don't, for some reason, and I don't know why. But something like the hairs on
but
the back of
I
my
like
neck are
the
just
I.
like.
Okay, I like the idea that he held McCarthy's feet to the fire and not just to be a go along to get along speaker. No, no,
Yeah.
there needs to be retribution. And remember, Pelosi kicked a whole bunch of people off the January 6th committee, this and that. And now
Mm-hmm.
when the Republicans are doing it, back to the Democrats are dying. They're getting their Academy Awards for
Hold
it.
on, I got to correct you. The justification for kicking Ilhan Omar has nothing to do with the January 6th committee.
Oh,
The
but
justification for
okay.
kicking Ilhan Omar off of the Foreign Relations Committee is because she's a bigot, and we
Well,
did
we
the
know
same
that.
thing. We did the same thing to a Republican in our caucus, Steve's. I don't have the name out of my head. I can see his face. Steve King.
Right, Stephen
And
King, right.
and it's like, and they're turned into two Steve Kings, and it causes all kinds of problems. And but yeah, so that's the justification, and that's why they got to get up there and start crying like little girls, like literally crying. And it's just like,
But what
whatever.
about when Pelosi kicked off people off the January 6th committee? So what do the Republicans do? You know, Sawwell and Schiff, they're gone off, the other committee, which I think is hilarious. And they were
Okay, now,
crying on every
okay,
news
wait a
channel there
minute. Now,
was.
okay, hold on. You don't get to rewrite history here. You don't get to rewrite history here. Okay. The January 6th committee turned into a real bad scene for Donald Trump and the Republicans. And I gave this example in the past, and I'm going to say it again on pod. This is going to be a very long pod, I can tell. Basically the Democrats came to the Republicans, and it's like, hey, they wanted to have Jim Jordan, and they're hot shit guys. And the Democrats were like, you're not going to allow that. So then basically, under instructions from Donald Trump instructed the minority leader at that time, Kevin McCarthy, to say, don't fucking play ball with these people. Don't be a part of the committee. It's a sham. It's fake news. It's a railroad job. This is bullshit. Don't even comply with it. And, they're like, okay, because if they didn't go with what Trump was signaling them to do, Donald Trump be out there talking about how McCarthy and all these guys are cocksuckers. Well, here's the problem. The Democrats come up to the Republicans and they basically say, we're going to have an investigation in a committee on January 6th, and each side's going to get a bullhorn to yell and scream at the top of their voice. And it was, would you like a bullhorn to also scream at the top of your voice while you're out there? And the Republicans, under the direction of Donald Trump, were like, nah, never mind. We're not going to do that. It's like, okay, they could have dug up any of these Republicans, these backbenchers that know how to string two words together to get up there and ask hard questions. Nobody in the January 6th committee called Ray Epps to testify, right?
Right.
How does that fucking happen? Because Donald Trump told McCarthy, don't play ball. And guess what happened? It damaged Donald Trump's reputation, and it made the Republicans look bad. Don't rewrite history. That was a clusterfuck. Ilhan Omar being off of foreign relations is because she's a bigot and a piece of shit.
Okay, then what about Sawwell and Schiff being kicked off the Intel committee, which is the most powerful committee there is?
It's not the most powerful committee.
Technically
it's considered what is considered the most powerful committee in the House is the House Ways and Means Committee, also known as the tax people.
The pocketbook.
Yeah, the people that fucking raise the money. Swalwell was out because of Fang. He shouldn't have been on it to begin with. And
Schiff, by the way, I seen the Fang thing.
Our Fang meme that I published.
I knew exactly what it was.
We got that from Kraken. He sent it over this morning. But Swalwell's out because he couldn't pass. He technically shouldn't be able to pass a security clearance. Okay, so that's why he's out. Then he's got to be out. And Schiff is out because all during this Russiagate horse shit that's been going on for now 6 years, he was going up there and he was leaking information to the media, leaking partial information to the media that was out of context, and flat out lying to the media.
Yes, he was.
The information, he was like, I have seen, he's basically,
we have solid evidence. That's right.
He was literally the Democratic version of McCarthy. Is it Joe McCarthy back in the 50s?
Yes.
And he's like, in my breast pocket, I have a list of 35 Soviet sympathizers working in the State Department. And it turns out none of that was true. Well, some of it was true. But he didn't actually have a real list. He just was scaring everybody, and he
Right.
was doing like what you would call a political reconnaissance by fire to smoke out. But he didn't actually have a list. He was lying.
Right.
And Schiff is off because he was playing politics with national security intelligence, and that is a big no-no.
Right. And now he has access to none of it.
That
And
has nothing to but that has nothing to do with January 6th. That has
right.
nothing to do with the committee. It has nothing to do with Jim Jordan not being allowed on the committee. It was not payback. Now, the Democrats are going to say the argument that you're saying, but that is not true.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
Harumph.
Listen, smart ass. Here's the thing. It's political retribution because of what Pelosi did to some Republicans. It wasn't just all over Trump telling them not to participate. Pelosi did kick a couple of people off. I'm going to dig that up and get you names. And so that when the Republicans are in control, they did the same thing.
She kicked them off. She kicked them off. Why? No, wait a minute. I guess she did. Did she kick off Marjorie Taylor Greene off of some committee, or did the Republicans agree to remove her?
No, I believe she kicked her off. I heard part of that today. I'm gonna go back and read all
Yeah,
that.
that's that. There. Yeah, I mean, but where you're in a situation where, okay, well, hold on, let's bring it back in. Let's bring it back in the guns. So it was earlier. I guess I saw the reporting this morning, so it might have been over the past couple of days. It was who were the so the drag queen Republican,
George Santos.
what's his name? Santos. The drag queen Republican
Georgie Porgy.
Georgie Porgy, and a couple of the other Republicans are were walking around Congress with little AR-15 lapel pins. Have you seen that? Yes, and either wearing them on their lapel. One guy's wearing them as a tie tack, as a tie pin. And I'll have you know that when I was in school, I had to wear suits and ties when I was in school.
Well, aren't you special?
That's why I dressed like such a slob today.
Well, you still wear the knickers and schoolboy thing and tie and the beanie when we meet for dinner. So
that's why no pictures allowed. hey, you know what? You may recognize me for my previous work with AC/DC as a backup guitarist.
All right.
Okay.
No. Okay, Angus. That's a guitarist name. But the thing of it is, oh, by the way, Georgie Porgy gave up all his committee assignments. He's just going to be the regular congressman, no committees.
He didn't give up shit.
See, out of the kindness of his heart, he gave up all his committee assignments.
In your best Arnold Schwarzenegger voice in that movie, resign or be prosecuted. I mean, it's like, come on, it's like whatever.
What
but wait a minute. You know what? Hey, Republicans are not opposed to playing politics here because it's called whipping votes.
Stop it.
Hold on, whipping votes. Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, what's his majority? Was chief political correspondent?
Five.
6?
Five. Or 6.
Okay, so let's say it's 5. Maybe it's 6. We'll say it's 5. We had a Republican that fell off his roof down there in Florida. I don't know where he's at. I don't know if she's shown back up or not, or he's still in the hospital. That gets you down to 4. Then you got some crazy, Gates you can't trust him, so that might get you down to 3. And then, it's like
you're forgetting about the Gates coalition.
6. Hold on. So my point is, but if McCarthy's got to whip up the votes and he's got a head count, and he's looking like, I can't trust Gates on this one. All of a sudden, George Drag Queen Santos is looking prettier and prettier because he's a Republican. And it's like, you were elected. You haven't been convicted of anything criminal yet. Vote my way, motherfucker.
Right. But here's why you don't like Gates and I do. He's going to hold McCarthy's feet to the fire. He's
There's
going
a
to
lot
hold
of people to hold
McCarthy
McCarthy's feet to the fire.
he's going to hold McCarthy accountable to ask the questions to get these committee things right and not just sugarcoat to go along to get along, which McCarthy is known for.
My
And
dislike for Matt Gaetz has nothing to do with politics, has nothing to do with logic. It's the same reason when I was telling a story on the last podcast, where the new Porsche dealer is, and many years ago I had a guy at gunpoint because he's trying to fucking rob me at the gas station next door, and the guy's walking up to me, and I get that feeling like, oh fuck. And I look at Gates and it's the same feeling. It's a street feeling. I don't know why. I don't have to know why, but my eye is on him, and he's the first person I'm drawing down on when the shit goes sideways because he's going to be the problem. That's the way I feel. I hope I'm wrong, but hey, he's lucky that they don't. Guys like Matt Gaetz, I hope he's a good Republican. I don't trust him, but guys like Matt Gaetz and George Santos should be counting their lucky stars, because if the Republicans had a 40-seat majority, that you couldn't find these dudes with a search warrant.
no, but Gates did get all the committee assignments he wants that he
Well,
wanted.
yeah, of course he is, because you've only
He
got
he's a player.
apparently, like was it at any time, a single member can basically call for a new
Right.
rolling
And
of the
that
speaker.
right. That is and what I really like now, because the Democrats were famous for it under Pelosi's watch, no more voting by proxy. When they have a bill on the floor, you have to be there to vote. And I like
Now
that
wait a
idea.
minute. Now wait a minute. What did I just get done telling
The
you?
person off the ladder, but we still have a 5 vote majority.
Well, one dude falls off the roof. One guy is busy being indicted back on Long Island, down two, and then it's like, oh, somebody stubbed their toe. They're out today because of a colonoscopy, and you see what I'm saying?
Well,
So
then
I mean, it's a double-edged
you delay
sword.
the vote, you don't call the bill. That
Yeah.
remember, the speaker has that power also to delay the vote and not call a bill on a certain day. And I'm sure that they have their whips doing head counts before anything hits the floor.
Well, I mean, unless you wait a minute, unless you do your head counts, and then you're like, okay, Gates, you're going to vote with us? Yeah, we have a deal. I'm going to give you. Yeah, we have a deal. You walk
Oh,
out there, and he's like, "Fuck
you
you."
just personally dislike him.
Yeah, I'm telling you something. I don't know what it is.
You
I
know,
hope. I hope we're not doing a blotter on him later. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but I'm like,
yeah, we've
it's.
been on politics quite a bit. Do we have any gun stuff tonight?
I got all kinds of interesting things. So, here's a
Let's
gun thing.
go.
So, do you know who the president of Brazil is? His name is, I think it's Lula.
Is that the
Lula,
one? Is the new one? Not the
the
one
new
that they
one,
wanted
the
out?
the the commie one. Yeah,
Right.
he's the new one that's like the commie. He was president before. I think he was indicted for whatever. Who knows? He was something. He's made a comeback. It's basically commies versus conservatives down there.
Correct.
So there was a Brazilian football player who
Soccer.
who
Soccer.
soccer, yeah, footballer, that's right, soccer, because it's I read in the foreign press. I don't know who this guy is, and so there's a photograph of him, and he's holding a pistol, and
A
he
Taurus, I'll
launched
bet.
he I funny you should it's
Brazil.
funny you should say that. So he's holding a pistol, and he has a poll. Would you shoot President Lula? And I think the old president is Bolsonaro. Is that his name? Is that
Something like that.
Yeah, and so
I know.
I think he's in Florida right now. He's and he was pro gun. He really like loosened up the gun laws there in Brazil. It seemed really interesting. But anyway, the picture of him. He's holding a pistol and a poll. Would you shoot President Lula or whatever? And and then I guess he had to take the poll down and apologize because it's kind of tacky. But nobody noticed but you and me, and you haven't even seen the picture yet. He's holding a pistol, but it's not a Taurus. It's a SIG. It looks like a SIG M18, which is the Marine Corps short version of the U.S. Army M17 service pistol. And
Really?
it's like, huh, that's interesting. Yeah, I thought you would have stayed on brand, a little off brand, aren't we?
Yeah, especially for the country where they're made.
Yeah, I mean, unless Taurus is knocking off a good copy of the Sig pistol, it looked like. I mean, it looked like the. I mean, it looked like the absolute looked like the Sig pistol. So, hey, I got
Really?
a question because you're a sports official, and
Yes.
I have. There's things I don't know in life about women. Because
I've been
I
married
didn't go
49 years, and what makes you think that I'm an expert? I still get rounded off every damn day with a question. It's like, are
because
you kidding me?
I didn't go to school with women. Like I
That's why
didn't
you wear
like.
knickers, Angus.
That's why it's right. I wear knickers, Angus. That is the title of the pod. So, apparently, Duke women's basketball is
Yeah.
come out. The coach. So they're playing a game again. I think it's some school in Florida, and the players keep coming up to the coach, like, I guess they're not doing well, and like, there's something wrong with the ball, coach. There's something wrong with the ball, and so they go to halftime, and turns out that the women were playing with a men's basketball
Okay.
for half the game, and so they switch it to a women's basketball, and it's like, we're swear, I guess the
Right. It's
NCAA is
it's a
like,
little bit smaller.
I had no idea. Like, so all I've been hearing about is equality, equality, equality in these sports. And you're telling me that these girls don't even use the same basketball as boys?
No.
I had no idea.
It's smaller, so you have more room around the rim for it to go in.
Apparently, according to the news article, it is an inch smaller and 2 ounces lighter.
Right. I thought everybody knew that.
Hell no, I didn't know that. I mean,
Why
I
did
just
I
thought
know that?
a basketball is a basketball. I had
No.
literally, like, for all these years, if I ever went to pick up a basketball or buy a basketball or do whatever, you tell me, like, oh, do I have the right? I had no idea. 51 years old. I had no idea.
It's really simple. Have you ever been to the carnival or the fair and you see those basketball scam artists where if you make so many shots, you get the QB doll and things like that? Well, that basketball is lucky if it has a 2 millimeter circumference to fit through the hoop.
I remember, I'll tell the story. So I remember this was, I even tell, yeah. So I was dating this stripper, and she wanted to go to this festival. And
Did you wear your knickers?
did I wear knickers? So she liked that hard rock. She was down for the tour bus. She was definitely that kind of girl. But she wanted to go to this festival. It was very early in our relationship, and so um there's like all these different things you could do, and the games and prizes and whatever. And like we're I don't know, I'm in my 20s, I guess, and there's of course, I eventually gravitated to it. There's like one of those BB gun shooting things, and you could win all these things.
All right.
And so, I'm watching people and doing it, and no one's winning anything. And I'm a gun guy, right? I mean, even back then, like, I'm a gun guy. And you know, guys, this is what you do. Whatever, you get so many shots in the thing. Like it's an automatic, like it's a pneumatic. Like you pull the trigger, it's literally in like an automatic BB gun
Right.
because it wants to run all the BBs out of it. So I
Is that the
hold it
one where you
up.
have to shoot the center of the star out? No
Yeah, you
red's
had to
got to be
shoot
seen. No
yeah,
red has to be left.
yeah, you had to shoot the star out. So I go, okay, all right, and it's like, all right, and so I hold the gun up and I take a quick shot, and I'm looking dead down the sights, and I see where it's hitting, and
To the right.
it's way off, and so I go, these sights are off, and I hold and I go, and I literally, that was probably a horrible sound on the podcast, and ate the star out. And my stripper girlfriend gets this giant bear, and she's walking around, and you would have thought, I tell you what, that day, I was Angus at AC/DC, buddy, because I was the hero. And that guy literally snatched that rifle out of my hand. He's like, Have a good night. You tell he was like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, and you had a banner made, Angus, King of the Midway.
King of the Midway. Oh my god. Yeah.
I know the sights are off all those things. I think they have they board the barrel to the right or something. They never shoot straight. Never.
Oh yeah. It was
Ne-
pretty bad. It was definitely pretty bad. So, um, what else was there I wanted to talk to you? Oh, do you remember the Tylenol murders?
yes, very well.
Um, I don't know tell the listener, as I'm going to hit mute. Do you remember tell the listeners, because I'm going to hit mute because I didn't turn a light on in here.
Okay.
Tell the listeners about what the Tylenol murder
Okay.
means.
Years ago, if you in today's world, if you look at basically anything, food, drugs, or whatever, it has a safety seal around the cap. Well, back then, before the era of safety seals, you could just pop the lid open and there they are. No safety seals, whatever. Just buy it and that's it. Well, someone was slipping poison into bottles of Tylenol,
Cyanide.
cyanide, and people were taking and buying these bottles of Tylenol off the shelf and using them for consumer use. Again, like I say, there was no safety seal on anything. So I can't remember how many people died from this, but after that happened is when the FDA decided, along with from milk to everything, where you have the blue ring on your milk cap to everything. That is why now everything is safety sealed, and the Tylenol murders is what led to it.
Yeah, and was this in the early 80s?
Yeah. So how would I do with the history?
You did great. I remember, I mean, I can't, if you weren't alive or if you were too young, I cannot overstate at the time that how big of a story this was. This story, for a short while, paralyzed people in this country.
It did. People wouldn't buy anything.
People wouldn't buy anything. And then, because then what would happen, like, it would, like, because, something had happened and somebody had died. And then, it really hadn't made the news because, like, people couldn't figure out what's going on. And then once it started getting out, like, something's up here, and they started figuring out, like, we got to start looking for this Tylenol. Then, like, somebody else died somewhere. Like, it was like a torpedo in the water. You didn't know it was heading towards you because people were like, "Oh my God, do we have cyanide laced Tylenol?" They never caught who did this
No, they
ever,
did
and it
not.
changed. If any time you go to open anything and you can't open it,
Yep.
it's all happened because of all that. Because literally, like when you and I were kids, you could have theoretically gone into a grocery store, popped open a bottle of Tylenol, and dropped the Tylenol pill right there and put it back on the shelf.
Right. That's right.
I don't even know
Everything.
if they even had cotton in them at that point.
I mean,
Um,
like I said, it just wasn't just the drug side of the FDA. It was your milk. It was this. It was that. Everything is now safety sealed because of that. Or you open a jar of mayonnaise, you got that ring on the bottom. Yeah, you break the seal, or it's got the cellophane wrapped around it. You break the seal. That's because of the Tylenol murders.
hmm honestly, you go to buy. I mean, I buy what do you call it? Like a non-gel additive for the tractor. It's got the hermetic seal on it.
Yep.
Everything has that kind of seal on. Well, the reason I'm bringing that up is
To,
they
to,
apparently
to show my age.
to show your age. Apparently, they still have in evidence a lot of these Tylenol bottles. Like they
Really?
don't know. Like there was a theory. I don't remember exactly. Like if someone was using a syringe or what they were doing or reassembling pills. Like, I don't remember because I was pretty young. I was, maybe 10. But, they apparently still have this evidence. And what's happened is, like, there was a story that, like, just today, some woman was contacted by the police because she might be related. She's according because she gave her DNA to 23andMe, that through public records now. The police are trying to find connections to a murderer or a dead body or something, and they're like, you're related to this. Like, what, like, oh my god. And so what they're going to go through the Tylenol murder bottles, and they're going to try to pull off as much DNA as they can, and they're going to go through all these DNA records, not only the stuff they have privately that they've collected through law enforcement, but also publicly, and see if they can't figure out who did this.
That's
And I
one
just
hell of a
thought
cold case file.
that is the ultimate cold case, because the reality is the person that did that is probably dead.
Yep.
It was super crazy. That was like a super, like very it's like a Ted Kaczynski kind of thing. Like, a
Yeah.
dude is just holed up somewhere doing his own thing, and unless you literally run into him somehow, you're never going to detect him.
Well, Ted's brother sold him out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was his. Well, I mean, look, if Ted hadn't of constantly been going off, typing shit like you do on the internet, because basically what happened was, what did Ted Kaczynski in was, he wrote this big manifesto and said, you got to publish my manifesto. And they published it because they agreed, so he'd stop sending the letter bombs. And his brother, because everybody saw the manifesto, his brother was like, this guy talks like Ted, like, just like Ted. And so he called the FBI, and they're like, tell us more about Ted.
Yeah,
And the
that's
rest
what
is
it
his.
was. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yep.
I guess I'm going off on a tangent, but didn't Ted Kaczynski, didn't he eat, when he was making his little letter bombs that he would mail or drop off, if I remember, he was making his own screws for the boxes, right?
Yes, he was. So nothing
I,
was traceable.
there was no, I mean, like, think about that. Like, that's brilliant. Like, I mean, like, I can't, I mean, just think what it takes to make a screw.
That that is that the fine line between insanity and genius?
Do you know what the fine line is? The fine
Yeah,
line is,
John 1911.
no, the fine line is doing work in a parking lot and closing it and putting a cable across saying, or a rope or whatever, saying, hey, the parking lot's closed, but don't hang a sign or a flag or a streamer or anything. And then one of America's most beloved auto enthusiasts, who already burned half his face off, comes driving by into that parking lot and gets clotheslined off his motorcycle, breaks his collarbone or both his collarbones and some ribs, and goes down on his, like, 80-year-old motorcycle. Did you hear about Jay Leno?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yes,
That
I
is
did.
awful.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. But unfortunately, there's no rule that says you have to have streamers or yellow police line do not cross streamers or anything when you cordon off an area like that. There
Yeah.
is no such rule.
Hey, do you? I don't know if you were like Freeze. Do you watch NASCAR?
I'm really not a fan of it because NASCAR coincides with my baseball season, and NASCAR, maybe the Daytona 500, the last lap, and that's about it.
Like the big ones. Okay, like, I get that. I get that. So, do you remember this past season? Because it made the news. This past season, the guy who uh he's, I don't know, he's like 13 or 14 back or whatever it was, and they're coming into the final turn, and the first, like, 10 or 11 cars that cross the finish line can qualify for the championship, if I understand it correctly.
Right, something
And
like
so
that.
that guy's name, who I'm going to bring up here, well, let me find it. Where it says his name is Ross Chastain. And so Ross was driving his car, and apparently there's a maneuver that you can do on a video game where you basically take your car, put it up against the wall, and you run your car down the edge of the wall, and you can pass. In the turn, you can pass all the cars in front of you because you're not going to spin out of control because the wall is holding you already through the turn. Makes sense? Did you see this video?
No, I did not. But
So this
I'm
guy,
gonna send you a picture that I want you to link with this story.
so this guy, so he did this, and it actually worked, and like it. I mean, it made national news. He totaled his car, but he did this maneuver.
And he
Well, NASCAR,
qualified.
and he qualified. He literally got up. He's like, they're like, "You did it, man! Oh my god!" Like you hear all the guys like in their cameras in their cars going, "Holy shit! Did he just do that?" And other guys are like, "Oh my god, that works! I saw that in a video game." And well, they've now passed a rule that says that you can no longer do that. They haven't officially said it's going to be called the Ross Chastain rule, but I think we're going to know this as the Chastain rule. And congratulations, because I think it's peak male accomplishment in life that you do something where they go, now we got to make a rule because no one can ever do that again because of
well,
what you did.
there, ironic that you say that. You know, in racing motorcycles, it's like NASCAR. It's a multi million dollar business with all of the big motorcycle manufacturers, putting in and this and that. Well, back in the 80s, they it was at the height of, like, okay, I'll say motocross racing, dirt bikes.
Hmm.
These bikes were one-off bikes, titanium, this and that, to get the weight down. So like the regular dirt bike on the shelf might have cost $4,000. These bikes were worth 200, $300,000. Everything, they looked like a stock bike, but they were unobtainable. Well, to make the long story short, is these factory riders, they're always placing the 1, 2, 3s, all this, all the other stuff, because they're on these $500,000 bikes. Well, AMA, the American Motorcycle Association, had a rule. At the end of the race, you could put up, say, $5,000 within 30 minutes and claim the winning motorcycle. Well, it was never done until on the 29th minute, after a big Grand National, this guy puts up $5,000, therefore not giving all the factory teams time to counter the $5,000. He got the $500,000 bike for $5,000. And after that happened, the American Motorcycle Association changed the rule, but he used it to his advantage that one time. And sure enough, just like NASCAR, they changed the rule.
Why was the rule implement? Why was that allowed? Like, what would be the situation like? So, like, if there's a race, like, you would let someone in the audience buy a motorcycle?
Anybody could have put it in, but it was somehow buried in the fine print.
But like,
Well,
how did it end up there? Like, what would be the like? Were they so broke when they started motorcycle racing that it was like, we need money, so sell every bike we
Well,
can?
I don't know what all the precursors were for this, but let's just say this guy, he was racing and he could never win. They have 40 bikes in the race. He was getting 39th all the time because he wasn't able to be on these factory motorcycles. Well, Poindexter did all the reading and all the rules and all the other stuff. He used that rule to his advantage, and sure enough, he did it. Now I guess the rule is, if you're going to protest this or try to claim the bike, everybody has another half hour to answer it. So all these factory racing teams are all now carrying the cash protest fee with them. And if they actually have people waiting at the end of the race at the judges scoring table to make sure that if you're going to protest, we protest it back. And the person that owns the bike, if they put up their own protest money, they get their bike back. But at the time,
I would
that
just remove, like if I was racing motorcycles, I don't claim to understand that much about racing, but like if I'm, like if I mean I have to go back to my youth, but like Richard Petty, runs for a racing team. It's cars, but then I don't know what the motive would be to like let someone buy the car that I just want if I'm Richard Petty. But
be,
then it's like, well, if Richard Petty's so unhappy with this, instead of allowing Richard Petty to counter and do whatever, just say Richard Petty and the team can keep the fucking
right,
motorcycle that
I
they,
understand,
yeah.
but I'm just telling you how it happened, and sure enough, the analogy is of how they changed the rules again.
No, okay, yeah,
You know,
that. If anybody listen to the podcast, send it to podcast@john1911.com. Tell us why they have this rule that lets you buy the winning motorcycle. I'm just curious. Like,
you-
it's like some kind of moonshine thing. Like I can get across the border.
I
I
don't
could
know, but
get the Coors Light across the Mississippi with the third bike
yeah,
jumping. You know,
but this kid got the $500,000 bike for his protest fee, and the factory teams didn't have times to counter because he put it in on the 29th minute of the 30-minute time limit.
You know what? Actually, the fact it's like the small guy got it because he played by the rules, he worked hard, he studied and put the time in. It actually makes me kind of feel good. There's a part of me that's like, yeah,
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 there
I
were a
like
lot
that.
of people, there were a lot of people that were happy, but boy, the factories were pissing and moaning about it, this or that. But guess what? It was in the rules,
It's
it
just
was
one
it.
motorcycle.
Yeah, but like I said, the parts on that thing were worth,
Well, you know what? Maybe they could have been like, offered him 10 grand and
oh, they
he
did.
could
They
have.
tried to buy it back for like 20,000 or something. And he says, no, no, no. And he never won a race after he got the bike. He was still getting 39th, but he beat them at their own game.
That's funny. That's interesting. That's interesting. Okay, that's kind of good. That's cool. So, I'll tell you what, we have been going for a while,
Uh-oh,
over an
blotter
hour.
time.
And so we're gonna go ahead and do a full police blotter because I think
Yes.
that's a lot of people really like the police blotter, and
I'm
then
one of them.
we'll go ahead and toss it. So the
All right,
first
Angus, what do you got?
the first remind me what the title is. What was the Angus phrase again of the podcast?
Angus, King of the Midway.
Angus, King of the Midway. Okay, so this
And you better
first.
post a picture of the guy from AC/DC in shorts.
I will. So the first story comes out of Claremont County, Ohio, which is here in Cincinnati. So there is a company here. It's there. There's companies here in Cincinnati and Hamilton that started as large safe companies, and so they still exist today. And so there's Hamilton Safe, and then there's Mosler Safe Company,
I've
and
seen a lot of
Mosler's
Moslers in my life.
yeah, and Mosler's, and I think they're technically owned by Ginnebo or whatever. But like we have dealt with them with armory doors or vault doors in the armory. We've because they deal with banks and institutions. So they have a factory here, in a place called in Claremont County, which is east of the city. So coroner IDs man crushed by vault door at Milford factory. Turns out it was the Mosler factory, or whatever they call it now. But it's like, oh God, like, guys working like these giant vault doors. You never hear about, you see vault doors, but you just don't think about,
The weight
like,
of them, they're amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the last vault door we had done it had to be brought in by crane. So just saying. So literally a crane. So
It's terrible.
second, this is so terrible. This comes out of California. Danny, did you see the video of the guy with no legs running with the knife and getting shot by the cops?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
That is so. California cops shoot double amputee dead with large knife. Apparently, he had already stabbed someone unprovoked. Stabbed him, wasn't like a self defense, and you know, and it's like I have to admit, like I saw this, and it doesn't look great to see Stumpy drop off of his wheelchair and he's running down the
You
street
can't even talk.
like Lieutenant Dan. I ain't got no legs, and they're chasing him, and like I think they're trying to tase him, and it's like they're reporting he's got a knife, and you look at this guy, the knife. It's like Crocodile Dundee. Like if this thing was any bigger, it'd be a Roman short sword.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know. I watched that video, and it's like they could have just caught him in 10 feet. He wasn't getting far.
but they gunned his ass down. They were like, because I mean, like, who's going to be the guy that's going to dive in there to take that knife? Like, I don't know. I could maybe have
Well,
done it when I was
always
younger.
remember with a knife, though. Well, of course, the guy didn't have the legs, but what is that? The 8-second rule,
You talking about the Tweller drill?
right? Is that Is
It's
that
the
eight
30
second?
it's the 30-foot rule, and then
30-foot rule,
they've
right?
expect I mean with this guy. So I mean the Tweller drill doesn't apply for this guy because the idea is you could if it's I think it's 30. Sergeant Tweller was a police officer in Las Vegas, if I remember all this correctly. And it used to teach this to young rookies in the academies, that how dangerous a knife is. A full-grown man in a full run, and at the time it was 30 feet, you can pull your gun out and he's running at you. Even if you're able to get a shot off on him, he could still kill you.
Right. He's still going to get to you.
At best case, it would be a tie. Now, here's what's happened. Since then, they've expanded the Tweller, Tueller, however you want to pronounce it, Teller or Tweller drill. Someone leave in the comments how to pronounce it. It's been 30 years since I did a study of this. So I think they've now expanded it to 55 or 60 feet. It's more than 30 feet now, the
Right.
theoretical distance. And so, but Stumpy here, like, I got to admit, like, seeing a guy with no legs running down the street,
With a
that's
knife.
that was pretty interesting. I mean, it was like, what the fuck am I looking at here? And it's like,
I seen the video, and I'm thinking to myself, why didn't they just tase him? Maybe
apparently they were trying to tase him. But
maybe they
you know
didn't have
what?
leg
One
shackles.
thing
I
with a
don't know.
taser is a taser. If you've never actually dealt with it, people have never dealt with a taser don't really understand. Like a taser, the prongs have to be so far apart, or you won't get a connection for the circuit. They just can't. So a taser doesn't typically shoot. You'll notice they shoot, but they kind of shoot at a little bit of an angle. So, like, because you can't have them touching or real close, because you need to create an electric
Right.
circuit. And so this little guy, Stumpy, Lieutenant Dan, running away. I think they were trying to tase him, but he's so small. I think either the stuff was getting tangled or one of the
And
barbs
did
was
you see
missing
how
him.
his clothes hanging off him and the extra leg length of the sweatpants or whatever they were? It's like, where's he going?
Yeah, he's trying to kill somebody and he's getting away. And it's like, I mean, how much are you going to pay that officer if to jump into that pig pile and try to take that knife from him? I mean, you can give the guy a medal, but the guy's a dirtbag. And apparently, I don't know why, but the family said Stumpy's family said that Stumpy had lost his legs because of, quote, an interaction with police in Texas, unquote. Whatever the hell that's supposed to
Would
mean.
they have a
It's
guillotine on his legs or
I
something?
don't know. He probably in a high speed chase and wrecked is probably what happened. I mean, did you lose both your legs? I mean, not one leg from a shooting, but both of them. He's, this guy's a whatever, but it's, we'll have the video up on the website. So now, they piece de resistance is
I'm
always
waiting
safe.
with bated breath.
The best for last. This comes from Alabama, and so I'm going to give you my short version. And when I tell you this story, I want to do a callback. I want you to remember one of the greatest American movies of the 20th century. And the movie is called Highlander. And Highlander had the Highlander character, and then there was Sean Connery And so, there can be only one, okay? Like the immortal people, and they're trying to chop their heads off, okay? So I'm thinking this is going to be a plot for the new Highlander movie. Alabama, dismembered human penis found at a gas station. And you're like, tell me more. Like, I've been to some bad gas stations. Full lockout, guy at gunpoint trying to rob me, at the stop and rob at the future Porsche place. So here's a story out of Alabama, February 1st. Dismembered human penis found in a parking lot of an Alabama gas station, as cops believe it belongs to a dead motorcyclist who was torn to pieces in multiple vehicle crash on nearby interstate. So think about this for a minute. So there was a motorcycle accident. The guy went down and he was hit multiple times. And so it's like he was torn to pieces. It's a horrible, obviously, they closed the highway. If that did when you look at the map and the traffic pattern is black, you're like, ooh, that's a fatal. They closed the highway. So
don't remind me of those, remember?
But that's right. This penis was not found there. His accident was on the highway. It wasn't at the gas station. And you're thinking, well, God, was he going 100 miles an hour and he blew apart and it was next to and the penis went sailing up into because obviously the penis must have gone sailing through the air. Oh no. A human penis has been found in a parking lot of a gas station in Alabama and may be tied to a deadly crash in which the motorcyclist was struck by multiple vehicles. Customers wandering into the gas station on Interstate 10 in Mobile were shocked to find the rogue appendage, according to local newspaper. Mobile police told the outlet that the bizarre discovery was not being investigated as a murder or assault, but could be connected to the devastating events which saw 29-year-old Christopher Means lose his life. Means was pronounced dead at the scene after losing control of his motorbike and being struck by several vehicles with only one driver remaining at the scene. Police officers responded to a motorcycle crash at 6 a.m. Monday near eastbound I-10 between I-65. Let's see here. Officers found one of the drivers involved, Means, dead at the scene of the crash. The preliminary investigation revealed the victim was riding his motorcycle south on 65, ramp eastbound I-10 when he lost control, according to police. The rider was thrown from the motorcycle and struck by multiple vehicles. The I-10 eastbound lanes had shut down for hours after 4 separate car crashes that morning. MPD have said that they were looking for the drivers who unknowingly ran over Means' body and kept going. So this was such a mess and so early. People, what was that? It was that wasn't there was something in the road last night. Someone, you didn't really. The guy was in Pete. You didn't know what you were hitting. Did I just run over a piece of a deer? So horrified members of the public took to social media following the incident. One user claimed to have been a colleague of the man who died. Quote, and this colleague wrote, and possibly one of the craziest, most effed up things I've ever heard, a severed penis was found at a gas station in my town yesterday. It belonged to the victim of a horrific motorcycle accident who also happened to work where I work. The dude was literally torn to pieces on the interstate during the accident, and his penis fell off the front of a truck when the truck got off the interstate. What the F? So this truck went through the accident scene, subsequently stopped to get gas. The penis is pinned up to the front of the truck. It's pinned up. Then when you pull it to stop at the gas station and the wind pressure, the penis dropped off the truck and was laying there in the parking lot. And so, I'm thinking about this, and it's this is the opening scene to Highlander. The investigators, they show up, and it's man, severed head found in parking lot. And there's the young, beautiful forensic investigator, and she's checking the crime scene, and she's looking around, and she finds marks. There's a sword under a sword under one of the vehicles, and she finds marks of another sword that doesn't exist, embedded in the concrete. And she's looking around, and and it's they have to find out. There could be only one because the Highlanders are cutting their penises off of each other. And this is just the most bizarre thing.
Well, that guy driving the truck, that was a dick move. Both figurative and literally.
And that wraps up episode 288 of the John 1911 podcast. If you want to see any more stories or pictures or links, please go to the website at john1911.com. It's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good night.
Bye-bye.